And welcome back to And They Lied, a healing story of a child's abuse from being a biker's daughter to the initiation of becoming a high priestess. And I am Shannon, and I'd like to welcome you guys back. I hope that you can buckle in because today we are going really deep today. Today's episode is not just about healing. Today's episode is about survival. We're going to talk about something that could have real impact on those of us that practice Santeria, hoodoo, shamanism, and any other ancestral spiritual traditions. I would like to begin to break down what Project 2025 is. I want to explain how it could affect spiritual businesses, for instance, like mine, a botanica, and most importantly, how we can protect ourselves. I also want to expose how Project 2025 aligns with historical authoritarian regimes, especially the little mustache man and his strategies, and how this administration we are currently under can use it to attack marginalized spiritual communities like mine. This is about awareness, empowerment, and action. And if history is repeating itself, we need to be smarter, more resilient, and more strategic now than ever. I want to start with this. Our practices have survived colonialism, enslavement, forced conversions, and attempts to erase them. We are still here. No political pan, no law, no restriction will ever erase the connection that we have with our divine, with our ancestors, and our spiritual teams. So let us get into this. The first thing I want to do is break down what is Project 2025. Project 2025 is led by the Heritage Foundation, which is a very powerful, conservative, white Christian think tank. And they have a lot of money and a lot of power that backs them. Their whole goal is to reshape our federal government in a way that aligns with only the white Christian nationalist ideals. This plan is set up to go into action as the Republicans have taken the seat, and now we are here in 2025 living their plan. They want to replace our government officials with people who align with their ideology. And not only align with their ideology, but enforce extreme conservative policies. Their main goal is to expand the executive power, giving a president more control over agencies that regulate religious practices, businesses, and online commerce. They are strictly enforcing a white Christian nationalist value. Their ideal of religious freedom only applies to conservative Christianity. Our spiritual traditions could face increased scrutiny and or restrictions. We can see them beginning to start to restrict businesses and financial freedoms. They aim to deregulate industries, but that often comes with stricter controls on businesses that they don't agree with, especially those like botanicas and alternative spaces of healing, yoga, all the different interdenominational practices, churches, etc. They want to begin a deep censorship and social media control, which we've already begun to see. They have begun using platforms to reinforce the quote, American values, which means that there is a serious risk for spiritual practices like ours being flagged as inappropriate, misleading, or against their government agreements or guidelines and laws. Why does this matter to us? Because many of us have already begun to struggle with the biases against our practices, especially those of us that practice Santeria, hoodoo, and all the other non-Christian traditions that are labeled as evil, pagan, fraudulent, or the devil. So, if Project 2025 policies take effect, we could see increased bans, fines, restrictions, incarcerations, in internment camp situations, and basically being set back to a place where they could essentially start the witch trials again. So, why is this important? Project 2025 is the blueprint for control. Let me say that again. Project 2025 is the blueprint for control. This is how governments have attacked spiritual practices in past. The Nazi Germany in 1933 through 1944, with the Mustache Man, he sought to suppress any belief system that didn't align with his specific ideology, labeling anyone non-Christian and those that practice non-Christian spiritual beliefs as dangerous. The occult, pagan traditions, and Afro spiritual practices were deemed subversive, illegal. The witch hunts and the religious persecutions, from the Spanish Inquisitions to Salem, history has shown us that when religious fundamentalists gain power, our mainstream practices become our non-mainstream practices, us, become targets every single time. History repeats itself. Merlin Stone wrote When God Was a Woman, and in every single civilization she spoke of, wrote about this was the common denominator. The criminalization of hoodoo and Santeria in the 1900s, laws were passed throughout the United States to make spiritual practices like mine illegal, and many practitioners were arrested and ultimately driven underground. And today, this is why we say that we have a closed practice. So, the potential threats that we have for those of us that are in Santeria, hoodoo, that own a botanica, that practice any type of ancestral practices, goddess worship, etc., we are under attack. We no longer have religious freedom under Project 2025 because it prioritizes conservative Christian beliefs, meaning practices like ours won't be protected under the laws. In the past, these types of movements have tried to ban our practices such as tarot reading, divinations, ritual practices, certain spiritual gatherings, calling them witchcraft or fraud. The risk of being targeted for Santeria, hoodoo, or any other African diaspora religions, they have always been misunderstood. So they have always been the first to be targeted. When laws change in favor of white Christianity and white Christian nationalism, we risk being labeled as threats or criminals for simply practicing our faith handed down. So let us talk a little bit more on now how this could start to affect our businesses. One of the things that I have started to notice is certain products might become a little bit more scarce. One of the biggest things that we need to be mindful of is spiritual shops could start to face stricter licensing laws or just outright bans. Payment processing and banks may start to become blocked and start to do things as if they did with the sex workers and the cannabis industries. They could do the very same thing to all botanicas and spiritual workers. One of the big things that we have all started to notice is that they are starting to surveil us and they are starting to use AI monitoring. They have increased monitoring of keywords on all social media platforms, and its intent is to flag spiritual businesses and accounts. The reason that they're doing this is so that they can have ultimate control. We have already seen Facebook, TikTok, Instagram cracking down on accounts related to tarot, related to spell work, and these conservative-led censorships could increase bans on spiritual practitioners, especially those that are selling hoodoo or Santeria products. Under Project 2025, these bans could be expanded and might make it harder to share knowledge or advertise our services. And we are already starting to see these type of things take shape. They are increasingly monitoring. So, what does that mean for our community? What does it mean for law enforcement? Right now, we're doing okay, but in the future, as these bans start to take effect or start to become more normalized, shall we say, expect more investigations of all of us in this community. Expect major accusations of fraud. And you can expect that there will be pressure on landlords if you have a brick and mortar store for a spiritual business, to have you evicted or removed from the property. So these are the type of things that they will try. And it's really important to be mindful of it. There's also the possibilities, sorry, the effect that they may begin to start using things like zoning laws, which would make it harder for you to renew your business license or even just start to get your regular supply chain. Um, we may start to see that certain herbs, candles, divination, tarot decks, etc., could face restrictions. Um, the biggest one is to watch our payment processing. Keep your eye on your bank accounts, your PayPal, or any of the financial institutions. Make sure that they're not refusing to process transactions for your botanica store, for your divination services, or for any spell work related products. This has actually already started to happen to many practitioners under certain policies, and this could get worse. And I say could when I know it will, and you all know it will too. The censorships that we're seeing are just astronomical. So, something else you could do is maybe start to look into multiple payment processors, or I don't like saying this option, but it is out there. Maybe look into considering a cryptocurrency, but I don't like that or just actually going back to straight cash only services. You want to make sure that you're separating your business and your personal banking so that that way that if they freeze your personal banking, you still have access to your personal accounts. Begin to start thinking of how to code your language online. If you heard me, I said earlier the mustache man, because YouTube has a problem with me saying the man that was running Germany in 33 through 45. They have a problem with all of us speaking of that because it's aligning so much with this current administration. So, something you can do instead of openly listing your spell work, maybe use metaphors or coded language like energy work or manifestation practices. Try to stay away from things like rituals or spells or things like that. Those key trigger words. One of the things that I want everybody to understand is that this is actually going to begin to first start in more in our cultural and racial uh sectors. Goodness. Communities. One of the big things that they're going to start targeting, and we're already seeing it with their DEI vendetta, is how Black, Afro-Caribbean, and Indigenous practitioners like me are at risk. Hoodoo and Santeria are deeply connected to our African Indigenous ancestry. These traditions were criminalized in the past, and this could again be another attempt for them to try to erase them again. Increased policing and surveillance in these marginalized communities will lead to legal risks for practitioners. So we need to make sure that we are protecting us ourselves as best as possible when it comes to these type of of protections legally. Um, One of the things that you can start doing if you're definitely starting to see any of this or you're starting to feel any of this is what I'm going to call digital cloaking techniques. Digital cloaking techniques will save our practices within our client base for a while. And that would be like using encrypted communications, staying away from WhatsApp mostly, because again, that is a meta product. You want to stay away from those products that are already pushing the state-ran propaganda machine. And you want to protect those more sensitive discussions and make sure that you're using an encrypted app like Signal or Proton Mail. Okay. Making sure you're backing up your content and your websites. Making sure you're storing digital copies of all your books, your rituals, any business materials, and making sure you're keeping those in secure locations. Stay vigilant while you're if you plan to stay on these social media sites. Avoid sharing location sensitive information about in-person rituals or events. Making sure, again, you're hiding yourself as best as possible. Um, One of the things that you're going to want to also do is to protect yourself a little bit more and just your own practice is by connecting with more like-minded practitioners or groups that support religious freedoms beyond Christianity. These are important um, assets for us and allies that will be there to help us protect us through some of this beginning chaos. Making sure you're supporting grassroots organizations that defend the rights of alternative spiritual practices is going to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we have the tools that we need. And again, looking into alternative payments platforms. Avoid relying solely on platforms like PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, which have had histories of shutting down accounts that are linked to spiritual work. It is also going to be really important that if you do decide to remove yourself from these platforms, that you maintain offline and word of mouth business strategies. Build a local client base that does not rely on these platforms. Getting back out there, going to the witch cons, going to the witchy events, going to the spiritual events, making sure you're finding out, is there a practitioner in your area that you really enjoy that you need to connect with? Because once we disconnect from these social media platforms, they will have a lot less easier time finding us. And also consider private networking for consultations, spell work, and classes. We have chosen to take our company currently to Mighty Networks. If you are a spiritual practitioner and you're struggling as well, I am recommending three platforms that are in my list of from the top securest to the least securest that are still giving us great results. The first one is going to be Blue Sky. Blue Sky has an amazing hashtag Witch Sky, hashtag Afro Caribbean practices. Um, like if you are a specific practitioner, you can find your community on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is going to be the most safe for right now, because we can block so many accounts from seeing what we're doing. The second one is going to be Mighty Networks. Mighty Networks is your own network. They can't infiltrate it without having your approval. The framework for the security for your group is top notch. Then you will also have the YouTube. YouTube is going to be the least likely to give us securities, but for now, they have not jumped onto the state-ran propaganda machine network like Meta and TikTok. So, making sure again you research your legal protections for your state, making sure that you have all of these legal guardrails set up so that you can safely navigate this. And some of us are still going to get thrown to the wolves. And we need to make sure that we are still strong so that we can help that sister when she does get thrown to the wolves. One of the best things would be if you feel like you're starting to be thrown in that direction, a spiritual protection ritual that you can use. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. It's called the Hidden Road spell. It's a way to shield yourself from any kind of surveillances. So you would need a black candle, a small mirror, bay leaf, and a small piece of black cloth. And the way you're going to do this is you're going to light your black candle. You're going to place your mirror face down. You're going to write your name and business on your bay leaf and place them under the mirror. If you have herbs like sage or um, maybe you have a special blend that you use, go ahead and sprinkle a little of that on there. Again, go with what's right for you. And as you're doing these herbs around this, I want you to think of these words. Eyes may search, but they shall not see. Roads may open, but not to me. My path is mine, my work is mine, hidden from those who wish me harm. And then you're going to wrap your mirror in the black cloth and keep that near your workspace. And that should give you a good spiritual protection. Another thing that you can do is a silent practice spell. And this is for safeguarding your craft in secret. And you would use for this, you would use a white candle, a bowl of salt, and a feather. Very simple. You're going to light your white candle, place the salt beside it, hold the feather, breathing deeply, visualizing a veil falling around you. And then repeat words, something like, my path is my own, my craft is unseen, my work is protected from all that would harm me. And repeating that 3 times, passing the feather through the flame back and forth, and then place it into the salt bowl. Keep this bowl in a sacred space as you shield yourself from outside interferences. So, those are little easy ways that you could actually protect yourself in this time. And one of the biggest things that you're going to want to do is you need to resist the fear that's taking over. Yes, we are all getting really bad visions. Yes, we see where this is going, but we need to hold firm in our practice. The power of our spiritual protection, making sure you're staying fresh in your hoodoo, in your santeria, and using your protection rituals in your home, your business, in your energy. Strengthen your ancestral ties. Sit with your ancestors more. Stay more rooted in that ancestral wisdom. These systems of control have come and gone before in history, but our magic, our power, and the spirit that guides us has always remained. So, if anything, let this be the call for you to deepen your own practices and not run from it. Let me just double check to see if there's anything else I want to talk about. No, I think that we're gonna do good with this one. My final thoughts and encouragement for my beautiful spiritual community is to stay educated and vigilant. This is how we survive. We can't turn a blind eye to what they're doing right now. And to know that no system devised can ever erase our ancestral knowledge. We have always found ways to practice in secret, and we will again. We come from a lineage of resilience. Project 2025 is a potential challenge, and our ancestors have survived worse. You are the resilience in action. We will find a ways to adapt, just like our ancestors did. So, making sure that you, again, join a safe space, find underground networks, connect with trusted practitioners outside of the social media bubble, support local botanicas and spiritual workers. If your business is facing prosecution, we need to help each other stay afloat. This is your call to action. Stay connected, stay educated, and stay strong in your practice. Okay, in our next episodes, we are going to talk about reclaiming our power and how to dive deeper into our spiritual protections with spells and maybe some deep dives into hoodoo and the resistance and the spiritual warfare that we are about to encounter. So again, my sisters, I say to you, stay strong, Stay aware. Protect your craft with every tool at your disposal. Our practices are sacred, and our community is our shield. And I invite you to come back on my next episode where again we can talk about reclaiming our power. Thank you for joining me and have a blessed day.